about that. Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a stove, but we ain't with all that. Yeah, 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 yeah. Made $1 million and I can't go back. Got a lot of jewelry on me, man, can't hold that. So ask him better, tell him that I ain't so crack. Know your money long when your people can't fold that. I'm ballin', yeah. My mama told me that did my calling. I keep that stick, I don't do no brawling. Open out the doors and let them all in here. Yeah, they all in here. Big dog, they come out the game, big dog. Heavy petty, got me break my wrist off.
Hello and welcome to RugbyPass Fan Zone with me, Jeff Neville. I'm joined today by Halde, Pottinger, and I think between the two of us, you're going to see a wide range of emotions after that Ireland-Scotland game. Probably a little bit of happiness and relief on my end, probably a bit of annoyance and frustration from Halde's, but sure, look, we'll get to that in a second. Overall, Halde, I must say I really enjoyed the game. Despite the errors, despite the mistakes, despite the unstructuredness of it, which you don't often see with an Ireland team. Like if you're coaching it, you're tearing your hair out. But as a spectator, like I thought it was quite a good game to watch overall. And I think even if the score went the other way, I probably would still be of the same demeanour. But how are you feeling after it?
Just for the Scottish fan, it's just that all too familiar feeling of what could have been and what not. And as you say, Jeff, it would be interesting to hear what the neutral thought. So any guys who watched the game today and you're not got a flag on any side, let us know in the comments. But it was a battle. It was an absolute battle right from kickoff, right from the start. And when we were on the back, Scotland were just on the back foot straight away. You can't fault any of the Scotland players. They, of course, gave 110%. We'll talk about some calls that didn't go our way, some calls that didn't go Ireland's ways, the try scored and things like that. But, you know, we came up against a good Irish team. We scored more tries than them. Towards the second half, when the game was on the line, we had it there, and yet again we just couldn't turn that possession, that territory into points. And all fair play to Ireland, they stuck to a game plan for most of the game. I think we'll speak a couple of times that it seemed like the game plan went out the window slightly, but overall I think Andy Farrell probably comes away from Murrayfield with a big massive sigh of relief rather than a good win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's probably two things you touched on there, and the first being players, and they did try their best. And even during the game there on Twitter, you could see people just tagging players in tweets and stuff like that, which was needless. And if you see that, just call it out, because there's absolutely no need to do that. That's the first thing out of the way, I suppose. But in terms of the game plan, I felt Ireland, as the game went on, played into Scottish hands far more. I felt we were very good at this, like a brilliant start, really, really quick start, 3-0, 8-0. But, you know, there was around the 63rd minute, I think Russell went off HIA, Hogg went to 10. And it was that moment, and I'm not saying that was the catalyst for it, but for me, from then on, Ireland just kind of went downhill for about 10 minutes. We had a crooked throw after that. Before that, we put phases together, but we didn't actually create anything. Pass went to touch, whatever. We got the ball back then, created very little. Then after that, what happened then? We gave Scotland the ball, lots of penalties in our 22, and suddenly Watson touches down and it's 24-all, and it kind of went from Ireland being in control and being 14 points ahead. You know, like we were 24-10 up at one stage, and suddenly it's 24-all, and that was from poor game management. And while it was unstructured and while there was lots of mistakes in the first half, it wasn't nearly as bad as during that 10-minute period. And when we went to 24-all, what I'm quite happy with is the fact that, the 14-point lead went, but Ireland still got the win. I suppose that's really encouraging from a Farrell point of view, because, you know, it would have been very easy to kind of say, right, we've let slip 14 points and we've either drawn the game or lost the game, you know, and it was tough to come back from conceding those 14, but to go up, and especially for a young lad like Ryan Baird, to get that penalty at the end, and I mean, Sexton to kick it from there, 24-all, like he's under serious media scrutiny and fan scrutiny all the time. But to kick it at the death like that, I think for Farrell is, and for those guys involved, is just it's a huge win at the end of the day. And while there is relief, I think they can be very proud of what they did as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does. And GT, good comment there. Thanks very much for tuning in. As a neutral, Ireland will kick themselves. They let Scotland back into it. Yeah, but they dominated when it mattered. And I think that's a good point. And we'll go into Michael Gosling's one afterwards. Great match, huge intensity at the breakdown, and probably the right result based on the play. It could be. If we try and go through the game a wee bit chronologically, Jeff, if we can. Yeah, Finn Russell gave away that first penalty. He found himself on the wrong side of the ruck. People will dispute. He was held in by Burns' leg. He shouldn't. He could have got out. He could have tried more. We see that kind of penalty given away every game, and I think there's probably quite some good game management from Finn Russell's point of view, because Scotland were right on the course. I think he was quite happy to give away that penalty there, and then we then went back to Scotland. I don't know why, but they kind of reverted back to their old selves in some way. And the lineouts that we've had today, Scotland. No, fair enough. We've got Fraser Brown, potential Lion, in the line conversation at least out. We've got Stuart McInally, potential Lion, in the conversation at least out. So we've gone to George Turner, who's a great player. George Turner, he puts the minutes in at Glasgow. We've got Dave Cherry, who just got his first cap for Scotland this season at the age of 29. So we're really going into the depths, but our lineout wasn't clicking. I know sometimes the Ireland, I thought James Ryan was pretty phenomenal in the lineouts today, but a couple of times there was one there where Johnny Gray just got up, caught it, and they just dropped it. So I know Ireland, they did put the pressure on and they did play very well, but at the same time, Jeff, I think Scotland let them play well at some parts too.
Yeah, just on the lineouts, I mean, straight away in the first half, I think it was 5 lineouts they lost her, and then there was free kicks given, there was crooked throws after that.
Yep.
That's an entire set piece gone. Oh. And if you're down by 6 points, 5 minutes to go, and you kick a penalty to 5 meter, that plays on you. So maybe Ireland's defensive lineouts didn't dominate as much in the second half as it did the first, but I mean, it did enough, So that took away straight away. As well as that, then, and we leave the ref out of the discussion when it comes to this, but Scotland conceded 10 penalties in 50 odd minutes, and on top of a malfunctioning lineout, they did very well to keep chasing the game and stay in the game. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, James Ryan jumping at 2, Furlong lifting at the front, that offers a one-man lift that you can defend and maybe get a second pot up if you want, and that's very hard to attack against. And we saw it, that's not a once-off either. We've seen it in every game so far that Ireland's lineup was excellent, especially in defence. And what was really interesting was coming into this game with Scotland and Ireland's lineouts as the 2 best lineouts of the tournament. Yeah. And Ireland, pretty much dismantled the Scottish one then. And that's you can't win games without set pieces, really. I think overall, in terms of playing and players and looking at it chronologically, I think as the game, like we said already, as the game went on, I felt we played into Scotland's hands a bit. But I think on both sides of the ball, both sides of the ref, I should say, I think decisions went both ways. I'm sure you have decisions for Scotland that should have been given to Scotland that went to us, and there was even a break by Jemison Gibson Park off a lineout, and I think was it Jamie Ritchie was a bit high on the tackle, but it was a penalty Scotland or a scrum Scotland, one of the, I can't remember which it was, instead of a penalty Ireland. So I mean, when it comes to the ref, I think if you're going to blame, I'm not saying you are, but if anyone's out there who blames the ref for the loss, I think if you blame a ref for the loss, you have to credit him when you win as well. I think that's a two-way street. But I felt Pot's probably best moment of the game, but if it wasn't falling over twice, was when Hogg ran through for his try. Pot just left it play, when it was Russell's try, but it was Hogg who went through first off. Pot left it play, and he screamed head, whatever it was, and he was happy for the boys to play on, and Russell scored, and then he went back, checked. It turned out it was a little chip and header from Hogg, or a Falcon assist to Russell for that try. And I felt he overall had a strong game, and it was very funny to hear his language when he was telling Sexton to talk to the lads, he was like, we'll get everyone off the pitch and then we'll put time on. And then he was saying, don't be scared, Johnny, you know, go talk to the boys. I felt he handled that situation quite well as well, without probably drawing attention to what had happened in the past. So I felt Poit did quite well today. And yeah, of course there'll be people begrudging him, like reffing's the hardest part of the game, and like who'd be a ref, you know, but I felt overall he was quite good today.
Yeah, I think we can't. It's a fair assessment there, Jeff. We got a couple of more comments coming in from Y92. Question: Ireland lucky? Question mark. If Scotland were capable of winning a line-out, you might have had a chance. I'll agree with that. We might have had a better chance, certainly. Y92. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Fair comment, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fair comment. And then we've got another one there from Shane Kernan. Do you think Tad Burns showed two of the best moments in the game, chasing Russell and sidestepping half the Scottish team? Well, Tide Burn we saw.
Like Furlong, I think, yeah.
Sorry, Furlong we saw doing like Michael Flatley, putting him to with the feet on him, and he's certainly, I think he's definitely in that. Not even there.
I think his face chasing Russell as well was very funny as well. So a bit of comic relief in what was a great game.
A good facial expression. Well, talking about Tidebird, we'll have a wee chat about the tries quickly. We got Henshaw's try, which we've seen it lots of times before. A lovely kick, pinpoint accuracy from Sexton there from set piece from breakdown, and Scotland just didn't deal with it. Let the ball bounce. What's one of the first rules you learn at mini rugby? Don't let the ball bounce. Two of the Scottish players let the ball bounce. Ball could have gone anywhere. It went backwards off at Earls. Earls did very well. I thought Keith Earls had a phenomenal game today.
A great game, yeah.
And Henshaw jumped on it. We've spoken about Russell's try when Russell used his head. Sorry, Hogg used his head and kicked it on Russell, which again, mini rugby always play to the whistle, always chase. How many players would have stopped? How many players would have just gone, he knocked it on, and wouldn't have even, given up the chase? So he went through and got that. But then maybe we'll speak about this one a wee bit, Jeff, because we might be in different camps here. Burns try, all right? Now, Poit was very confident. I know he is the closest man there, so perhaps there is no argument because he was right there. But we saw from the not the TMOs, but even the video replays afterwards too, that the ball seemed to be held up. And then Poit took a long time before he actually gave the try. So what during that, if the ball has hit underneath, on top of somebody's arm, and they're stopped, no try yet, no try yet, no try yet, no try yet. Oh, and then there's a try. Then does that then category a double movement? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that one?
I think you nailed it at the start when you said Poit was the closest man to it, or the closest person to it. I can only go from television match replays, and as you know, this is on the whistle stuff here, so I only saw the replays from straight after. I think it'll be maybe not as big a decision because it wasn't at the end of the game, but certainly a decision like it told you as yesterday, which I think the officials got bang on the money as well, just for what it's worth. But when it came to Burns today, I think if you look, and I know it probably doesn't factor into it, but if you look at the play coming up to it, I mean, Ireland were getting forward in every carry. They were clearing out well. They was pretty powerful, and they bullied their way up there.
Very impressive, yeah.
So when it comes to that final, I suppose, that final push from Byrne, did he get it down? Well, it was given. So in my eyes, yeah. And if Poit said he didn't get it down, like he said to Henderson there a couple of weeks ago when he was TMO, I mean, it's luck of the draw, really. Well, it's not really. It's the ref's decision. But I mean, if that was if you look at Watson's try at the end, if he had decided that was a try or not a try, it's probably the same conversation we're having. Did something happen in that melee of bodies that we can't see? I think some decisions are very clear cut. Like, I mean, when you look at Henshaw's, comes back off a Scottish player, and Earls competes, comes back off a Scottish player, and Henshaw dots it down. And same with Hugh Jones, unbelievable running, terrible defense, but unbelievable running. I think those tries, you can, it's grand being a ref, but that's why I wouldn't be a ref. I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't do it. It's the most thankless job in the world. But to get back to the point, I think when it comes to Burns' try, like this sounds like kind of an out, but it's not. At the end of the day, the ref gave it, so you just have to, you said, you play it to the whistle, and he gave it, and that's it. And you just kind of move on.
we've got a comment just saying that as well from Davy McKeever. Thanks for tuning in, Davy. Saying any Scotland fans blaming the ref need to take a look at themselves. Watson and Hogg were the only ones who turned up today. We then got a comment there from Callum Handy for Roman Poit, man of the match. Josiah Del Rey, Scotland worked so hard to pull even just to give it away. Yeah. Michael Gosling, Poit read very well. He's one of the best at the moment. So yeah, there's loads of different kind of camps. The one there from Berth Kerwin, Romain Poit being sent flying and breaking his whistle was a moment of comic relief in an intense game. Jim 83 agreed. Poit had a good game overall. I'll go back to Davy's point in there, saying that Watson and Hogg were the only ones that showed up. The game did change for Scotland, whether it was a case of Ireland letting them in, or as well as Ireland letting them in, or whether it was because Hogg was there at number 10. We had scrum half Scott Steele making his debut at flanker for Scotland as well. Well played, Scotty, mate. Well played. But when Hugh Jones came on, he had an immediate impact, and that was the Hugh Jones of old. We saw Warren Gatland watching the game. He's obviously got the clearance from Boris and things. We have to be travelling between countries and all that sort of stuff. But we don't mind it. We need Gats there to look it out. But we saw Hugh Jones's try, fantastic try, and we saw Hamish Watson's typical Hamish Watson try. And again, we all saw the ball being touched down. Fantastic athleticism to get that ball there. But that brings us on to that Lions debate. Again, so Warren Gatland is there, having watched an England game yesterday, England overcoming France. What players have maybe stuck their hand up today, but at the same time, what players have maybe put their hand down?
In terms of putting their hands up, I'm not a big fan on potential Lions 15s, but I don't mind calling out players who put their hands up. I think right now, if the Lions were to play tomorrow, Robbie Henshaw is nailed on. In the centre, James Ryan is nailed on as well. I think the way Ian Henderson is putting himself about in the last few weeks, he has been incredible. Tyg Byrne is really putting his hand up too. Keith Earls today had a stormer, like an absolute stormer, and even little things like he burned 3 Scottish players in a ruck at one stage. He was keeping them honest. His retrievals off a couple of box kicks, his contest for Henshaw's try, and not only that, but there was a part in the game when, we pushed ahead to go 24-7 or 24-27 ahead. There was a box straight after that to exit, and Earls reclaimed it again straight away. So, I felt he had a fantastic game today. He's lots of critics.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I never really understood why. I think he's a fantastic player. Yeah, fine, he made a couple of mistakes in previous games, but sure, who hasn't, And even if you're looking at the Irish defence today, like there were mistakes. And there's probably a couple of players, without naming names, who's made more errors than him on a more consistent basis. So, I mean, I feel those guys really, really put their hands up for Ireland today. Hamish Watson for Scotland, like, I don't think I've ever seen Hamish Watson play a bad game.
No.
If that's fair. He's such energy, such enthusiasm. Actually, just on Ireland as well, CJ as well, but that's nothing unusual there, For Scotland, I felt Hogg did really, really well as well. And even his ability, to swap into 10, when you're going on a Lions tour and you're stuck for numbers, like that's an incredible ability to have a back 3 player who can also play at 10, So I felt all those guys did really, really well. And in terms of putting their hands down, I don't like kind of saying that, because I mean, they're working so hard at a craft that I'd never be able to do. So I probably won't be I'm not going to call them out and say, oh, he's definitely not going to go, because I don't feel that's fair to their efforts, to be honest with you.
No, I agree with that, Jeff. I'm never one for giving any players a hard time, because I agreed I could be doing what they're doing. Overall, Jeff, for me, from a Scottish perspective, and we spoke a wee bit about it during the match, Ireland their teamwork together is incredible, and they are very impressive. They've still from that Joe Schmidt era, perhaps, when they get the possession, they grind that possession down. We saw the stats at even at half time, it was 60%, first 20 minutes, even more than that territory. They grunt their way up. Now, obviously, Farrell's trying to bring in a new, he's put his own stamp on the team. I think we can start seeing that come through. But from Scotland, I think there's still a wee bit of and again, in the most positive way possible, because none of us could do what they do. There seems to be a bit of naivety almost in the team that we're just not bullies. You can imagine the Six Nations were all at school. Ireland would be the bully, like in a good way. Do you know what I mean, Jeff? Ireland would be the big bully, and Scotland would be the wee one who's having to dish out his pocket money. What one big example? I mean, this might sound like a stupid point, but one example, when Sean Maitland did a tackle on James Lowe in the first half, knocked him out off the pitch. He helped him back up and went, "You're right, Jim," or whatever, and then went back to his place. When Henshaw nailed Van der Merwe, knocked him out the park, he then started goading him on the ground, and then two or three other Irish players came in and started goading as well. It's that nasty attitude that it becomes like they make themselves a horrible team to play against, and they make themselves a really hard team to beat, because I think they're just more streetwise. They just push things to the limit, and for Scotland, we just don't have that yet. And I don't know why, if it's tactically we just don't get it sound, because obviously we saw the Scotland team that turned up for England. It's just a thing that they just had an off day today. I don't know, but Ireland continue to make themselves this really hard, nasty team to beat. And with the World Cup just a couple of years away, Johnny Sexton, he played fine today, got that last kick. Or do we still need to see another level of transition from the Ireland team when you're looking at players like Sexton, Conor Murray? Or do you think this could be an Ireland team building up to the 2023 World Cup?
I think with the Sexton debate, it's one we could probably talk about all day, and it's one that's been, constantly talked about. And despite the fact, and I guarantee this, despite the fact that Sexton kicked the winner at 78 minutes or whatever it was, or 75 minutes, whatever it was, I guarantee you'll have people still giving out about it and saying he shouldn't be on the pitch. So I think that's a debate that, regardless of what you talk about, there's going to be no winners, in regards of the people debating. It's a constant narrative, I think, in the media, and it's a constant narrative of, well, any Irish game where Sexton starts, you can be guaranteed that's going to be spoken about, But just conscious of time here, Halde, looking towards Scotland, Italy next week, what are you looking forward to seeing from Scotland in that game? I imagine a strong finish, obviously, but I mean, in terms of maybe game plan or structure or anything like that, what are you hoping to see?
Do you know what I'd like to see happen? Obviously, Italy seem to be going down, if anything, which is a shame. We all want a strong Italy. I would like to see, personally, Scotland try some different things. I would like to see some different combinations. I would like to see Hugh Jones maybe being given a chance to starting. I'd like to see some other players come off, and Scott Steele, give him a shout at scrum half, because obviously Ali Price needs to go away. I rate Ali Price a very good player, but he obviously needs to work at his box kicking, because he got nailed by Mario Tolji in an England game, and we saw what happened when it was his charge down kick. So I would just like to see some different combinations, because Scotland, we're still at that level where Finn Russell gets injured, Stuart Hogg gets injured. Shit, what do we do now? So we still need to still work on our depth, because obviously we're a country with only 2 professional rugby teams. I'd like to see them, and obviously I would love them to keep this ratio of Italy giving away 40 points every game. I would love Scotland to be able to reach 40 points. I would love to see them do it. I'm not going to say they're not going to do it, because we don't know what happens on the day, and they're going to give it their best. So I hope so. I hope to see a good, solid win with different combinations going. We've obviously got the Wales match against France. We've always got England, Ireland. What's going to happen with that one? Because with England, is that them back on form? Is that them? It's certainly going to be a more interesting match than what we were thinking it was going to be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and even yesterday morning, I was chatting on this with Grant on the preview show, and we were talking about England-France, and I said that I think if anyone could beat France, it's going to be England. I felt they were going to. I felt they were just They are still transitioning in attack, and they're just bringing in something new. And I said it there as well yesterday. That they've, like, Eddie Jones has one eye on 2023. That's a fact. Yeah. And I mean, yesterday, before the game, Eddie Jones, he's in trouble. After the game, everyone's talking about how he's, well prepped heading towards 2023. So I suppose rugby's just that fickle, our sport is that fickle. And even if you look at Pivac, coming into the Six Nations, he's in trouble. And suddenly, he's on course for a Grand Slam against France next week. So I suppose it's just the swings and roundabouts of professional sport, isn't it? But no, looking at England next week, I suppose we'd have to see an awful lot more of the structure that we probably lacked in the last 20 minutes today. Have to shut down their space, have to shut down their set piece as well. When Wales played England, was it 4 lineouts England had? I think 4 or 5. I think it was 4, and I think 3 of those came off England penalties. So Wales just weren't kicking to touch, and that took away a massive set piece for England. So I think it's not a bad tactic, but I don't think it'll work for us, especially with our defensive lineout. I don't think we'll be too afraid of their set piece either, but certainly respectful of it. But no, I think next week, Ireland, England, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be an awful lot more structure than today, an awful lot more kicking, because I don't think either team will want to have the ball that much, because the team in possession seems to be the one suffering breakdown turnovers these days. Like, why would you want the ball when you're probably going to give up that breakdown turnover, that breakdown penalty, So no, I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can put together and stuff like that. But I think the game of next weekend is probably going to be France, Wales. And like yourself, no, I am looking forward to Scotland, Italy. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing Italy do something maybe a bit different. I was chatting to Leonardo Giraldini, and there's a podcast out tomorrow with him about what Italy can do to improve. And, he thinks that, or he reckons that it has to come from the clubs initially. And even with Benetton earlier today, they're gone 0 from 13 in the Pro 14, which breaks my heart, to be honest with you. But he does have a good point there. But I think I think the idea of Italy, let's say, being terrible and has to go to relegation, I don't think that's an argument. Like, if you look at Georgia today, Georgia beat Spain, I think, by 6 points. Spain probably unlucky not to get that win. I think Italy are so far behind at the moment, but there's just reams and real miles ahead of the rest of Europe at the moment. And even with, people say, oh, they did well under Conor O'Shea. Conor O'Shea put an awful lot of work into the grassroots game as well, and that's beginning to flourish, and those players are coming through. So I think, while, let's face it, you wouldn't bet on Italy to beat Scotland next week. But I don't think it's as bad a situation as people are making it out to be. And I don't think that, going to a 5 nations or going to a 7 nations or 6 nations with South Africa instead of Italy, I really don't think any of those are the answers. I do think it's up to Italy to sort it out themselves in terms of what help can we give them and everything like that. I don't know. I honestly, God, I don't know. And I'm glad it's not me making these decisions either, but I think it is up to Italy to sort it themselves. But in terms of Italian rugby, I don't think it's as bad a situation as everyone's painting it to be. And I know 30 plus consecutive losses is not a great picture. That is not lost on me. But, I think I at the same time, I don't think after 10 years of investment that the answer is to chuck them out of the competition, or to have, and even on that relegation one, if Georgia were to come in and if Italy were to go down, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a yo-yo between Italy and Georgia every 2 years. What's Georgia going to learn getting thumped 5 times every second year? I don't think they'll take anything from it. So that and plus the fact that Italy have a stake in the 6 nations and that whole, they're not going to vote against that and stuff like that. If it does go to a vote or whatever, I don't know. But, there's that side too. But I really do hope to see we've seen flashes from Italy, but certainly finishing off those flashes, I think. It can't be good for the Italian mindsets just reading that comment there, getting hammered in the Pro 14 and in the 6 nations, and it's not. Maybe in the Pro 14, the answer might be doing what the Jaguares did in Argentina and just making one localized or one central team. I know, and again, I don't have all the answers, and I'm glad I'm not making those decisions. But in terms of sorting it, I think it is up to themselves kind of to sort. But looking at next weekend, 3 games. Give us your 3 winners straight off.
Bumper Saturday, isn't it? We're going to go for Scotland. Hopefully a comfortable win. We're going to go for... I don't know, it's too close, isn't it? Are we going to see a Grand Slam? Will we see a Grand Slam? I don't want to see a Grand Slam. I don't want to see a Grand Slam. So if France were to win, it still makes it relatively interesting for the last game. But Wales, who's going to bet against Wales? You can bet for France to win, but who would actually bet against Wales? So I'm going to go for Wales. I'm going to go for a tight score. I think Wales will grind it out. I think Wales have learned more as the tournament's gone on, and I think they become the better team. Whilst, Ireland has been stop-start, with Scotland, we're kind of going back down a wee bit. England's kind of coming back up. I think Wales have been relatively consistently coming up. England, Ireland, that's going to be much such of a match like it was today. It's going to be brutal. You can imagine those packs absolutely smashing each other. We saw how intense Ireland were at Ruckin today. So I might give it to Ireland. I might think England might give it a doff to their caps that they beat France, and they might be quite happy with that themselves, and they'll be looking towards 23. So I might go for a kind of Celtic-ish kind of win for the whole, sweeping across the whole thing. There you go, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, next week winners. Cheers, Neve.
Neve's bang on the money there. I think I agree with you, to be honest. Yeah. So, folks, that's it from us today. If you'd like to see more of Halde, he's on TikTok and Instagram under Halde Pottinger. If you'd like to see more of me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram on the Loosehead. That's it from us today. Thanks a million for joining us. Time went on a bit more than we planned, but sure, look, that's not a bad thing, so that's okay too. Looking forward to seeing you next week for Super Saturday, folks. All the best.